So I also MistareFusion like pinged me on Twitter because I like reacted to his video. He obviously saw the like highlights channel, clipped it. He was cool about it, so I'm guessing he's like cool with me doing this. But yeah, all credit to him because these videos are pretty good. At least from the last one I watched, I'm expecting this one to also be like fairly good. So we'll see. How come I can't hear? Oh, my headset's not on. I'm fucking tripping. Yeah, this is the Bulma guy. This is the Bluma guy. But yeah.
Relationship between two people, the first Dragon Ball Dissection of 2018. So last time, Toriyama sacrificed Yamcha for a relationship between two people who had hardly interacted prior to this, and will rarely interact after this for the entire rest of the manga.
Oh, bro, you know what's like weird about this? Everyone voted for this one over the other choices, and this is the sequel video to the last one we watched.
It would take quite a lot to diminish the goodwill of such a rousing setup. What could possibly go wrong? Piccolo fills everyone else in on the non-Trunks portions of the exposition, since Goku doesn't know what he's doing, and Namekians apparently have super hearing. But can he tolerate whistling in this continuity? With all the dire news out of the way, the rest of the characters demand more exposition, so Goku is forced to recount how he got off of planet Namek. It turns out that the Ginyu space pods were ripe for the picking once Frieza's ship wouldn't work. Thankfully, Goku's random pressing of buttons did not result in a Darwin Award by hurling him into a nearby sun, but instead took him to the planet Yardrat, because, as Vegeta helpfully contributes, the Ginyu were in the middle of conquering that world. Well, they must have been taking their sweet time since Vegeta doesn't really seem to have been in a position to be privy to Frieza's attack strategies since over a year before the Ginyu came to Namek. But when Vegeta reveals the Yardratians possess some crazy techniques, Goku admits he did learn how to teleport from them and demonstrates it by instantly retrieving the
Should I? Oh wait, hold on. Everybody's like commenting on how fast he's talking. This is the same speed I watched the video in last time. So should I slow it down or are y'all fine with 1.5? 1.25? Okay, I will slow it down to 1.25.
Tin Roshi's glasses. It's a technique that requires Goku to sense out a person's ki rather than a place, and it's going to come in handy on multiple occasions.
Oh yeah, this is way
With
better.
every little last thing explained to everybody so we're all caught up, it's time to prepare for the future. However, there is a problem. It's a huge, time-traveling elephant dragon in the room that has to be addressed, and Bluma is kind enough to do so. Not only do they now have knowledge of the future, they've always had access to wish-granting Dragon Balls. The combination of the two should result in the shortest story arc Dragon Ball has ever...
Oh, also, just to note, because I know that a lot of people have only seen Dragon Ball Z like dubbed. This guy, from what I've learned, only goes over the manga. So, if he says anything that like seems weird to you, because I know they changed some stuff like animated manga, if he says anything weird, that is probably why you think it's weird.
Ever told. All they have to do is use the Dragon Balls to find out where Dr. Gero is and stop him before he causes this untold death and destruction. It is a massive corner Toriyama has written himself into, and he deals with it by coming up with not just the best workaround he can think of, but by having the characters throw out every explanation they can think of. No excuse is too small. Most of the characters started out as enemies or rivals, and a common foe is what has kept them together. Dr. Gero hasn't done anything yet, so it would be wrong to confront him. They want to fight and test their abilities, and Vegeta will just plain kill anybody who tries to stop him from roiding out. I'm honestly surprised Toriyama didn't make a new rule for the Dragon Balls that Shenlong can't interfere in the domain of science. None of these is completely irrational, except for the science thing. But I'd also say that none of them really should prevent them from acting in some capacity, and none of them is a compelling reason for risking innocent people or possibly the whole world. The Vegeta thing is probably the easiest workaround. By all logical accounts, Vegeta shouldn't exactly be welcome on Earth, or should only be as welcome as he is useful. The second he starts threatening to kill people, deal with him. Goku alone at this point should be more than enough to handle any threat Vegeta could pose. I'm going to now go down a very long rabbit hole that could be conceived as controversial. It certainly wouldn't be the first time. The only reason this is an issue is because there would be no story if the characters did the smart thing. So, the story has to turn them into idiots who refuse to act on this extremely ominous warning. This scene had to have happened after Trunks returned to the future, because he would have had a psychotic breakdown if he was forced to witness the absolute stupidity swirling through the brains and gurgling out of the mouths of the people he had just entrusted the safety of Earth to. When Bluma becomes the moral center of your group, you really need to rethink your life. And while it would still be bad either way, what really makes this unbearable is just how out of character all of this is. This is going to require me to step back for a moment and talk about some of the meta aspects of this series, namely what kind of series this is and what kind of characters these are. It's also going to require me to speculate a bit on the creative aspects of the series, as well as the mindsets of adaptations and segments of the fandom. Just bear with me, it'll all make sense in the end, or at least hopefully it will. It's been my observation that opposing opinions tend to work on something of a pendulum. The farther an opinion is pushed in one direction, the farther and more pronounced it swings in the opposite direction. I think it's fair to say that Dragon Ball, in English-speaking countries, has a heavily divided fanbase due to the number of differences between the original and the reversioned English dub of the television series. I'm not here to fight that war. I served my tour of duty as an angry, foul-mouthed teenager some 18-odd years ago. But, while many battles have been fought, there's one that serves as a particular rallying point. I am the hope of the universe. That's the beginning of the speech that Goku delivers to Frieza in the Funimation dub.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie, bro. The Funimation dub, this scene, ass. That shit is terrible. I can't get behind it at all.
A Super Saiyan. Depending on how you see Dragon Ball and where in the fandom you are, this speech is either one of the most iconic moments of the franchise and a shining example of how Funimation improved upon the source material, or it's the focal point of just how little Funimation understood both the character of Goku and the series as a whole, turning the main character from a poorly educated martial artist into Superman. You know, before Dragon Ball Minus did it. As for me, I've already said what I thought of the speech. It was stupid and out of character to begin with, and Funimation's rewrite only served to exacerbate those problems. As such, I'm not typically as fussed about this scene in particular. But over the years, I've seen those two viewpoints push back at each other so much that they've gone from alternate interpretations of a scene to complete polar opposites of interpreting the character. Goku is a selfless superhero who rights wrongs and saves the innocent. Goku is a selfish man-child and a terrible parent who only fights to satisfy his own primal urges, and it's only a happy accident that innocent bystanders sometimes get saved. And it's not as if I haven't been guilty of that in the past. Now, anyone who says that the antics of Masako X from Dragon Ball Z Abridged makes a good parody Goku but wouldn't fit the real Goku...
What happened to bro's mic
this
quality
scene
just now?
Give you my feelings on the matter. While I still contend with the right script and more serious direction, he probably could make a damn fine Goku. I admit that was reactionary hyperbole on my part to drive home the idea that Goku is sillier than the English dub used to be comfortable letting on. But then again, sometimes I use hyperbole just for the sake of jokes in this show. Toriyama himself is not immune to this level of pushback. He has said that he was unhappy that the anime staff made Goku into more of a, quote, righteous-type hero. And it was also apparently his dissatisfaction with the American live-action movie Dragon Ball Evolution that pushed Toriyama to jump back into Dragon Ball in the 21st century. Notably, he has said, at any rate, I wanted him to have the sense of being that rare guy who seeks only to become stronger than before, so much so that it feels like there's no one as pure as this person. And while he does end up saving everyone as a result of that, he himself at least has a very pure sincerity about wanting to become stronger. What I wanted to depict the most was the sense that he might not be a good guy at all, although he does do good things as a result. Because of statements like that, I see tons of people defending this scene as being totally in character, not just for Goku, but for everybody. They're martial artists. They're not out to save the world. They're there to push themselves. This isn't an American superhero story. It's an Asian wuxia tale. And by saying this is plot-induced stupidity is missing the point of that and ascribing out-of-genre characteristics to this story. But given my 20 years in the fandom and my 6 years analyzing the series from the beginning for DBD, I have to say, I just don't agree. At least, I don't agree up to this point in the story. It's pretty clear to me that by Dragon Ball Super, the pendulum is swung into full-on Goku caricature. So yes, I'm saying I disagree with the Japanese side of the fandom and Toriyama himself. Stop the presses! Fusion has betrayed the cause! No, not actually. I just feel the problem is in the extremes of the pendulum. Is Goku obsessed with fighting? Yes. Is he heroic? Yes. But are those traits mutually exclusive? Not as far as I've seen. Now, I certainly believe, as I mentioned in the Frieza arc, that a lot of later Goku is a shift due to the retcon of Goku's Saiyan heritage. A lot of those elements tended to be grafted onto Goku or exaggerated as the series went on. So overall, Goku shifts from a more selfless person to a more selfish person. But I also believe, and this is speculation on my part, that Toriyama, most likely subconsciously, pushed Goku in that direction as a reaction to his feelings that Toei were pushing Goku too far in the other direction. But let's take a look at Goku. In the first story arc, Goku is not a terribly active character. For the most part, he does whatever Bluma tells him to do, but the very first time he acts against her is to bring the sea turtle back home. That has nothing to do with his quest, there is no promise of adventure, there is no expectation of combat, even though it does ultimately happen. Goku is not doing this for himself in any way. He simply believes it's the right thing to do, and so is compelled to do it. That's one of his earliest defining character moments. Bluma is selfish, Goku is selfless. He can ride the Kintone because he is pure of heart. In the first arc, he is the moral center of the story. Everyone else is in it for themselves, constantly trying to stab each other in the back. But not Goku. Later on, in his second Dragon Ball quest, his only goal is to retrieve his grandfather's keepsake, but when he gets it, only for Bora to die, he continues on anyway to collect the remaining Dragon Balls and defeat the Red Ribbon Army. Sure, he's excited about getting to fight, but it's ultimately to save other people and defeat the bad guys. Now, there are certainly elements I find a bit muddied, to be sure, but that's because I find the longer the series goes on, the more inconsistently Goku is written. He'll spare the Ginyu because they run away and aren't worth fighting, but he'll chase after and kill Black just because he's a bad guy who shouldn't be allowed to get away. But then he'll spare Vegeta because he is worth fighting. See what I mean? Because he's the main character, he'll often do what the plot requires. I don't really see the fight against Ma Jr. as painting him as selfishly as I see others sometimes like to say. Sure, he really wants to win the match and will therefore restrict himself in that sense, sometimes to the point of making risky decisions, and that is a large part of Goku's charm and an integral part of his character that shouldn't be overlooked.
Hey, this nigga cooking. Hey, he's cooking. Bro, I low-key forgot and I was supposed to be like reacting to it. Like I was just watching. This nigga's cooking, bro. Hey, he's on some shit. He's on some shit. He's on some shit. The only part, like, okay, Goku's inconsistency as a character or whatever, I think the decisions are inconsistent, but I don't think that Goku is inconsistent, if that makes sense. Like, I think Goku always just does what he wants. It's just said Goku. I always say Goku. What? I don't, bro. If you're talking about like how this nigga be separating it like Goku, I did not say it like that. But nah, no, bro. This shit's heat. But yeah, I think it's more like, okay, like what he said, Goku doing what the plot demands. Since he's the main character, yeah, that makes sense. But I don't think that the shit's inconsistent because of that. Like Goku, after he got out the fucking pod on Namek or whatever, he's clearly just like a different type of nigga. Like he's just all around different at that point than he was before. So I'm gonna keep playing it.
But I somehow doubt that if Goku had lost the match, he would have just given up and let Ma Jr. take over the world. In fact, I remember saying at the time that it seemed like a rather silly narrative convenience that Ma Jr. wouldn't just start fighting again after Goku spares him, but at least in that instance, Goku had already proven himself superior, so it made some sense that Ma Jr. would turn tail. And of course, there was also a pragmatic reason to spare Ma Jr. in addition to Goku's desire to fight him again, as it kept God and the Dragon Balls around. The fight with Raditz is a watershed moment for Goku as far as I'm concerned. It is clear in every possible sense that Goku's only motivation is saving his son. There's none of that goofy amiability or unwavering excitement at a challenge that Dragon Ball Super's Goku just can't seem to get past no matter the danger. In fact, when asked by Piccolo if he's excited to learn there are two stronger Saiyans than Raditz, Goku point blank says he's not excited. He's terrified. Goku has no qualms about fighting 2-on-1. He has no problem attacking his opponent from behind, twice. Hell, he has no problem holding his opponent in place so his ally can impale him to death. The only time Goku slips up is when his good-hearted nature allows him to trust Raditz. But there is never a moment Goku makes the situation worse for the sake of a good fight. Vegeta is really the first.
I think that most of what he's highlighting here is just Toriyama failing to portray what he wanted to. Like he pulled the quote up, but Toriyama's like, you know, I wanted Goku to be this guy who just wants to get stronger, like he's just pure that way. And then as a result of that pureness, he just saves everyone. But I mean, the things he's bringing up are valid. Like I just think Toriyama failed at doing it. What's the context of the video? Catch me up. It's just somebody paid me to react to MistareFusion's video.
First time I see Goku go
That's his
against
name,
the pragmatic
right?
solution
Yeah, it's MistareFusion.
solely for the desire to fight that person again. Not surprisingly, it's not too long after the Saiyan race is introduced, and it's a decision Goku attributes to his Saiyan heritage, which is now a thing that's always been there. I'm not at all denying that Goku's desire to fight strong opponents has been one of his core character traits, almost from the beginning. I'm more trying to point out that it really becomes disproportionately pronounced over time. And I have a hard time believing that the Goku who wanted to save Bora is the same Goku who is now shuffling his feet over a threat that's going to turn the world into Skynet.
I mean, I think you could explain that as like Goku's desire to fight people gets stronger the stronger he gets. Like I think that's pretty implied. Like aside from the Saiyan nature or whatever, I think that's pretty implied throughout just Dragon Ball itself.
But what about the rest? They're all martial artists too, not superheroes. And again, I'm not disputing that. They're not the Super Friends. They don't hang out at the Hall of Justice waiting for some nefarious plot to stop. Nor would I want them to be that way. But let's look at Ten Shinhan, the other member of the group who actually says he wants to fight them to test his skills. Since he's kind of the prototypical Piccolo or Vegeta type character, it's not too far-fetched for him to say things like that. After all, he says something similar when he heads off to face Piccolo. He's not doing this to be a martyr, but his pride as a martial artist wouldn't allow him not to face Piccolo. He's also the guy who balks at using the Dragon Balls to defeat Piccolo rather than facing him head-on. But when push comes to shove, he does tell Chaozu to do just that. And I think that's pretty consistent with the others too. They want to get stronger for its own sake. They love the idea of getting to train with powerful masters and improve their skills. But they're not stupid, and they're not selfish. And even if they were selfish, it is kind of in their best interest to make sure the Earth is safe because they kind of live there. Now, way back at the beginning, something I said I liked about the first arc was just how amoral and selfish the characters are, so you may think I'm backpedaling on that. But I'm not. In fact, I had this moment in mind when I was writing that all those years ago. And just like my stuff with Yamcha in the last episode, it is so nice to finally get to the payoff of things I set up so long ago. So I have a couple of rebuttals here. One is that these out-for-themselves character motivations work a lot better when the stakes are low and the story is a comedy. It's harder to not be frustrated by blatant stupidity when I'm ostensibly supposed to be taking your story seriously. Two is that when the stakes are raised to the fate of the world being in the balance, those same stupid, selfish jerks put their own wants and desires aside because saving the world is more important. Well, except in Oolong's case where his desire does save the world. But yes, the characters in the sexual harassment comedy part of the story act more sensibly than the characters in the stone-cold serious story of cybernetic domination. What sense does that make? There's also a reason why, in one of the corrections I put out during Dragon Ball Dissection December, I talked about Usia and said very pointedly that genre convention never serves as an excuse for poor storytelling. And that's because, even if we dive head first into the defense that these characters are martial artists, and this story is Usia, and that's what makes their decisions not stupid or out of character, I wholeheartedly disagree. Because see, I may not be an expert on the genre of Usia, but I do know Dragon Ball well enough to know bull when I see it. So, this is a martial arts story, huh? And these characters act the way they do because they follow the martial artist path, huh? That's your final answer? You're going to double down on that? Well, in that case, remember the Muten Roshi? The guy whose title means Heavenly Martial Arts Master? I have a little quote from him that maybe you've forgotten. One does not study martial arts in order to win a fight, or have girls say, "Ooh, you're so strong." One masters those arts for health in mind and body, for the ability to live one's life as courageously, uniquely, and energetically as one wishes. But, if there are any who seek to terrorize you or any other decent people with undeserved power, you must defeat such enemies with one mighty blast. In case you didn't catch that, the most prominent martial arts teacher in this franchise tells his students before the first lesson that it is a martial artist's responsibility to protect the innocent and not about winning fights for their own sake. Maybe it's just me, but I don't see how letting the evil mad scientist have his way so that I can prove how strong I am is in keeping with the whole martial arts philosophy behind this franchise. Then again, Goku didn't seem to understand what the Muten Roshi was talking about, so maybe that's where the problem lies. If you still don't
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Goku didn't understand what Roshi was talking about. I haven't seen Dragon Ball Deliverance episode 4, Jason. Appreciate the 5 though. But yeah, Goku didn't know what Roshi was talking about. That's literally what I was gonna say. And then I think as Goku gets stronger, not that he gets dumber, but he just, like I said earlier, he just wants to fight stronger people. Like the desire gets heavier. It's almost like Goku keeps feeding an addiction, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. That's really just how I look at it, rather than it being inconsistent.
Believe me, I have one last thing to direct your attention to. If this scene is in keeping with the character's established intelligence, philosophies, and motivations, then why are they proactive the entire rest of the arc? When they find out there are more artificial humans, why do they want to stop them before they're activated all of a sudden, despite having faced relatively little resistance up to that point? When Cell comes into the picture, why do they try to stop him before he can become perfect? When Vegeta is the only character trying to do the opposite in those instances, why are they all against him and treat him like he's insane? The answer is, now that the plot no longer requires them to be stupid, they'll make the decisions they should have made in the first place. So sadly, after an awesome beginning, the main conflict is built on the flimsiest of foundations. And the sad thing is, this really didn't need to be a millstone around Toriyama's neck here. He could have turned this negative into a positive very easily as far as
I mean, it's sort of different. Like, yeah, with the androids and stuff. At least now they know for a fact that the androids can cause super destruction. Because of what Jiro did in the city. So it's like, we need to prevent this, and they can see that the androids are a legitimate threat because what they did to Goku, what they did to Yamcha, things like that. I mean, so like when they don't go kill Jiro, it's a little bit different than when they want to stop the androids from coming out and then want to stop Cell. So
see it. And I know I'm Monday morning quarterbacking here, but bear with me. So, they know about a future threat, and they have the means to stop it. Well, instead of having them sit on their hands, why not have their attempts to fix the future screw things up even more? After all, that's going to be a large component of this story anyway. Goku says he doesn't want to kill Gero before he does anything. Well, him being part of the Red Ribbon Army aside, I agree with that. It would be pretty damn dark for them to bust down his door and murder him in cold blood. But they don't have to do that. They can use the Dragon Balls to find his location, track him down, and warn him. They know what he's doing. They'll be keeping an eye on him. And if they get even the slightest hint he's making these artificial humans, he will pay. But let's say he gets away somehow. Now they can't use the Dragon.
Well, oh my god. This is one of those situations I touched on in my Obito video where characters not acting in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes it's frustrating. In one of these examples, like this guy's clearly frustrated about, how the story ended up going down. But like a character not acting in the most efficient way possible, in my opinion, it doesn't make the story bad or anything like that. Like tracking Jiro down to kill him versus tracking Jiro down to warn him is like two different things. Obviously, like completely different. So if say like what does Goku sound like saying let's go warn this guy to not create these androids? What does Goku sound like saying that? Like who's the one who should bring that up? The only one around who could bring something like this up would be either Bulma, Krillin, or Yamcha, right? That's the only people around who would realistically bring this up, and none of them would be taken seriously because you have Vegeta right there who would shut it down, and same with Goku. And then I mean, even then you got Tien too. Like Tien would just shut it down. Like going to warn this guy to stop them. It just wouldn't go over well. Like, I don't think they're being stupid. It's just weird. Okay, hold on. I don't think they're being stupid to a certain extent from a certain perspective. They're definitely being like inefficient. It's just like one of those things that's frustrating.
Dragon Balls to track him again because the Dragon Balls won't grant the same wish twice. It would be nice if Toriyama remembered that rule outside of Resurrections. And to skip ahead, the reason the artificial humans are so strong is because Dr. Gero studied the heroes for years and is using their own strength against them. Well now, because they paid him a visit, he has even more up-to-date information, which means the artificial humans will be even stronger than the ones Trunks knows. Which again, is something that happens in the story already with no explanation. It turns the characters' good intentions against them, while still allowing them to be proactive, and it raises the stakes even higher, turning to that old time travel adage of not knowing the consequences of your actions when you change the past. Or, we could just have the characters be stupid over the whole thing. Why not? Now, we're 3 episodes into this arc, and I haven't even gotten past the prologue. That's only because this arc very, very quickly hits rock bottom. But the good news is, and I'm serious about this, that means there's nowhere to go but up.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I expected, it was a good video. Like, just realistically speaking, bro, after watching the last video, there was just no way that guy would go from that quality to just like some dog shit. I knew that would be a good video.